So we have Wilbur.
Yes, we do.
Okay. And then it just seemed like reactivity and then the kind of more confidence in each other is what I picked up from it.
Yes, he is pretty confident, except for when he's on the leash and sees other dogs. Then it's just major anxiety and hypnosis.
Okay. What does that look like?
So people, other animals, he's fine with, but when he sees a dog, he'll jump up high in the air and he'll bark. His tail will be wagging. It's not really aggression. I just don't think he knows how to socialize on a leash.
Okay. How long have you had him for?
I've had him for 3 weeks and 4 days now.
3 weeks. Okay. And he's had this issue since you first got him?
Yes.
Okay. Did you know about this before you actually got him from the rescue?
No, the way they told me that he was is that he wants to be very social on the leash, but they weren't very upfront about how he actually was.
Okay. It can be a couple of reasons. One is since he was out of an element, like a home element, they don't see those things.
Right.
In other cases, they don't give that information out. So, have you tried anything on your own to address him?
Yes. So we've been working with a few different tools now. He has the halty, so it goes around. I'm sure you know what that is. With that, he doesn't bark, but he will work really hard to try to get out of it, but I can contain him with that. And then we also use a bark collar. We've been working with that, and I just actually ordered a one of those prong collars because another person suggested that I use one of those too. So we're testing out the tools right now.
Okay. What kind of bark collar is it?
I will tell you, I have two.
Sure.
I have one that's automatic for when I'm gone because he has a little bit of anxiety.
Okay.
Which is understandable given his past. And then the second is the Educator ET300 remote dog training collar.
Okay. So you have an e-collar essentially.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
Besides the reactivity on the leash, he also, I think this is just probably going to take time because he was abandoned a lot, obviously, in his short life, but he doesn't like to be away from me, and he always likes to keep eyes on me. So we've been working on that, and we've been working on crate training with him, but that's not as big of a deal as going on the leash.
Yeah, what have you been doing with the crate training?
Yeah, so initially, the first week it was just like putting treats in there, waiting for him to go in and congratulating him when he went in. And then at another point it was, I would have to like help him go in because he would just be sitting there shaking. And now when I say the word CRATE, he goes right in there and he lays down and he knows how to go in there already. So he's done much better with that. But when you close it and lock it up, that's when he starts going
crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is even like with you being present and stuff? Like if you put him in and close it and you're right there, like he'll just start throwing the tantrum?
Not so much anymore. He just whines now, but it's not barking and not going crazy anymore.
Okay, good. Anything else?
No.
Have you had a dog previously?
Yes, I've grew up with dogs.
Okay, were they trained on prong and e-collar?
No.
No? Okay.
Actually, one of them, my boxer mix, was trained on prong collar.
On prong collar? Okay. So you have some familiarity with like the tool?
Yeah.
Okay. And then how did you come across the e-collar?
My sister, who I'm staying with right now in Baltimore, she has a lab puppy, very excitable, very adorable, and she had been using that with her. So I also spoke to my parents about it. They're longtime dog owners, and they you know, it wasn't really what I wanted to do, but they said some dogs, and their trainer told them the same things, like some dogs need it. So.
Mhm. Okay. Good. Anything else?
No. Anything
All
else?
right.
Do you have anything? No.
So I'll fill you in on everything, how this works and stuff like that.
Okay.
The good thing is you have a lot of common sense around you.
Yeah.
Okay. Because, and I understand emotionally you don't want to hurt your dog.
Yeah.
Right. And we're going to talk about that and just all that stuff. But you're on the right track. Okay. And the good thing is you're also starting early. Like you've only had them 3 weeks and you're already like, okay, you're very quickly kind of going through the process. Typically, like I get people that struggle with these things for years before, you know, and other trainers that the methods don't work before they ultimately come across me or a trainer like myself. Or maybe they've worked with trainers that use e-collar, but they just don't use it the same because everybody has their own theory and how things work and stuff
Right.
like that. And when I got into dog training, I got into dog training specifically to work with dogs with behavior issues.
Yeah.
Because those are the ones that are going to be returned. Because nobody returns unless like circumstances, you know, like they move, or you know they can't afford it anymore, or something happens, right? Nobody returns a good dog really. So with the prong collar, you may not even need that.
Okay.
Okay. With your bar collar, is it the same educator or e-collar technology brand, or is it a different brand?
Let me see. Yeah, it is. Educator e-collar.
Okay, cool. So both those models are um, professional quality models, so that's good. Typically, when people reach out and they've already have an e-collar, it's a really crappy one.
Okay.
So there's only two brands that I can get. There's only two brands that I recommend. I use specifically Dogtra, but I can see Wilbur here. He's how many pounds?
He's 50.4.
He's 50. Okay. How long ago did you get the educator collar?
3-4 days ago.
Okay.
That
From
one's
Amazon or from the site?
from Amazon.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to fill you in. My suggestion is that you actually exchange that, not because it's not a good collar,
Mm-hmm.
but because that collar, the 300, is meant for 35-pound dogs and under.
Okay.
Okay. Now it'll say on, I think it might say on there something else, but I used to use Educator very early on in my career when I started. And unfortunately I had noticed some, I don't know, not discrepancies, but it wasn't as effective as the particular brand that I use now.
Okay.
And ever since switching to Dogtra, and you can find them on Amazon as well, I've had a much higher consistency and success rate with working with dogs.
Okay.
Every now and then I get a dog that is under 300. And a couple things and it can be effective if the person gets the right collar for their dog, then I'll go like, yeah, you're fine. I'm not too worried about it. Every now and then, because the way the stem comes across, in my opinion, the e-collar is the educator is a little bit more sharp, whereas
Okay.
Dogtra is more dull.
Okay.
Okay. So that impacts how the dog perceives it, which can give us some more of a subtle response as opposed to like, oh, what the hell was that? Okay. Now, if you decide to keep your collar, I'm not opposed to it because, like I said, it is a professional quality collar. But you know, we might come across where we have a couple of sessions, and then all of a sudden, like something's not right, something's not translating well, and then I'll most likely, you know, think it's the collar because that's the only thing that really changes. And when I work from person to person.
Okay.
But I leave that to your discretion, and I'll give you options after the consult, and then you know, I believe if you're not using everything, it should be an easy just send it back, and because it's, you know, it's early on, and then just get the correct one.
Sounds good.
Okay. So When it comes to dog behavior and um, like, because there's a little bit of separation anxiety, there's some kennel anxiety, and then we have the dog reactivity.
Yes.
Okay, is out of all that stuff, the hardest thing to fix is the separation anxiety in most cases.
Okay.
Okay, because that happens when you're gone for
Yes.
the most part, right? So that's where your bar collar comes into play, and you would actually keep that. I double check it just to make sure you have the correct one. Now, when you're leaving, are you leaving for like extended periods, or are you leaving for like a couple of hours?
It really depends. So initially I worked on like 30-minute increments, and now I think the longest I've been away is 2.5 hours.
Okay, so so with the bar collar, it really essentially just lets you live your life.
Yeah.
Okay, so like let's say I get someone who adopts a dog and they have to go to work 9 to 5, like they can't do 30-minute increments
Yeah.
or whatever because they got to just go to work. So I'll tell them, buy a bar collar, slap it on your dog, put the setting on 1 or 2, and do your life, like whatever.
Yeah.
And the collar will do its work. Now the difference here is that the bar collar corrects the symptom. Okay, so the symptom is the cause is separation anxiety. The symptom is barking or howling.
Yeah.
Okay, so it addresses the symptom, but it doesn't address any separation or anxiety that's there. Okay,
Right.
that's where formal training with the e-collar comes into play, and they kind of work side by side.
Okay.
Where the stuff that we do is to target the anxious behavior that you're seeing, and then the bar collar is addressing things when you just need to leave and you can't, as you're working on things, right? Now every case is different. So as that one trainer put it, some dogs need e-collar. Okay. Now in my opinion, every dog needs an e-collar.
Right.
Okay. Because so people tend to look at it as the last resort. Okay, they look at it as nothing else has worked. I guess I guess it's just e-collar, right? And they go, I'm like, no, it's the first thing I jump to because one, it's the only tool, it's the only training method that can guarantee you off-leash control.
Right.
Okay, so and you may not want Wilbur to like walk off leash or sit off leash or down off leash, but the one thing that needs to be off leash reliable is recall.
Yeah.
Okay, that's common cold, and the only tool is e-collar because if you have steak and he's chasing after a squirrel running towards a street, he doesn't care about the steak anymore because he doesn't always get to chase a squirrel, but he can always have that steak later.
Yeah.
Okay. With the prong collar, much better. But when you remove the leash, now there's no connection. So now you can't make him return. Okay. With the e-collar, you can make him return.
Okay.
Okay. And this is something that I stress a lot in my training. I train for the stuff that people don't really expect or suspect will happen, but happens. So like, I have had a few here. One of the most common things I hear about with dogs running away is fireworks.
Yeah, this is actually how we ended up at the shelter this most recent time.
Gotcha. So yes. So if family's out enjoying the park with Wilbur, someone lights a firework off, he runs away, nobody can catch him,
No.
and there's nothing to override fear.
Yeah.
Okay. E-collar can do that.
Okay.
So now that's not about obedience, right? Because if he's running away because he's scared, he's like every dog for themselves,
Yeah.
right? Is the theory is, when he's running in fear, I would first call him, right? To see if logic will just return him, but probably not. But then I have my e-collar, and I've had a number of times where an owner has told me like, my dog ran off and I had to max it out to make the dog return.
Yeah.
And they go, yeah. I'm like, because it's an emergency setting, right? Dog is scared. Dog is chasing a squirrel. Dog is running towards the street. Like, there's no time for, I hope my dog comes. It's, you need to return. Okay.
Right.
So the reason why e-collar and prong are more effective are because they are physical animals. Dogs bite each other.
Yeah.
So if Wilbur, like let's say you got to a point where you're socializing him and maybe he didn't have good manners and he was like being really pushy with the dog, you might see the dog turn to him and like snap at him.
Yeah.
And the dog's not being aggressive. The dog's just saying like, yo, back off. I don't like how you're approaching me.
Calm down.
Okay. So the e-collar or the prong essentially replicates that physicality.
Okay.
With prong collar, the one thing, it's an effective tool. I love them. I use them. But I don't, I use them, like, for instance, I had a lady who was like 90 pounds. She was like she was like maybe 4'10" to 5 foot tall with a 150-pound Great Dane. Okay. Yes. Okay. So it was both e-collar and prong collar because prong was physical control. Okay. E-collar is mental control. So she needed both those things because her dog was also reactive. And I said, one day you might turn the corner. There's going to be a dog there that you're going to need everything at your disposal to regain control if your dog, becomes reactive. In your case, you have a smaller guy, and I'm not against the prong. The reason why I do training solely e-collar is because, one, it's easier for the owner to learn. Okay. There's very minimal technical skill involved. Okay. It's super simple. With the prong collar, you need to be a little bit more skillful with how you use your leash. Okay. Now, let's say we solely focused on prong collar to stop the reactivity. From 10 years of experience, I'm thinking, the reason why I jumped to e-collar so much is because, one, again, just right off the bat, off leash control, right? But it gives me the highest rate of consistency. If I give the owner instructions and they follow it, right? Very rare that I have issues stopping the behavior or resolving the issue or getting the obedience in. Okay. Right. With prong collar, because it takes more skills and it takes more time to learn, but then we also have to account for if Wilbur's very reactive, and you have to, with a prong collar to correct the dog, you would yank the leash, right? To pop, to bite him. Is if his intensity is higher than the consequence or the level of consequence you're able to deliver with the prong collar, he won't stop.
Right.
Okay. So then we waste time. We waste weeks on, he's still barking and lunging, and I yank him and I yank him and I yank him, and he's still lunging and barking. And then I go, okay, now we'll switch to e-collar. Like, why would I do that when I know the e-collar, I could just get it right, like, boom, just stop it. Okay. So if you end up needing both, it's more so like I said with that young lady, when she would turn a corner, if there was a dog there, I teach you how to handle those things, but that's where the prong would come more into play, because you need just sudden and immediate control over him, and that gives you the most leverage for sure. Okay. But we'll see how all that stuff plays out. So we got the e-collar, we got the prong collar. So are you familiar with e-collar and the technology behind it?
No.
Have you ever been to a chiropractor or a physical therapist?
Physical therapist, yeah.
Have you ever had stim?
No.
No? Okay. Have you ever seen those videos on YouTube where, like, they'll recreate labor contraction pains in men?
Yeah.
Okay. Almost everybody's seen that. Okay. So that machine and the e-collar are the same.
Okay.
Okay. But obviously, to recreate labor contraction pains, it's very intense. Okay, so that's why those men are yelling and all that, they're in discomfort. With e-collar, it's the same technology. So it's electric, but not electricity. It's not like a taser. It's not like sticking your finger in an electrical outlet. It's electric, but not electricity. So there's a current, but it's only there's two, if you looked at your e-collar, there's two probes. Yeah. And where they make contact is where they would feel the sensation. Okay. So it's on their neck. Only the neck is feeling the sensation. Nothing is happening anywhere else. Okay. So if you put it on your hand like this and you hold it lightly and you put it on, like, maybe with your particular brand, you'd probably be like a 6 to like 9, and you'll start to feel a weird sensation. And as you go up, you'll start to see your muscles twitch, like where your thumb would even move. Okay. Yeah. Because it's stimulating the muscle, which then causes some kind of movement elsewhere. Okay. So, but it's centralized only to that area. So people usually think like they're electrocuting their dog, and I go, no, like, because in old school, the term shock collar was because those models had like 5 to maybe 10 levels. And now they go up to 100 for your particular model, and mine go to 127. The difference is their 10 and our 127 are the same, but I have 117 more individual divisions to really fine tune it.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you went to a chiropractor or a physical therapist, like let's say you had back pain, they would put the TENS unit, they put these little pads on your back or whatever, and they'll tell you, like, let us know when it becomes uncomfortable. And they would start low and they would work their way up. And then you would say, oh, right there, that's too much. So then they would lower it down, and then they would say, how does that feel? And you would say, oh, that's fine, I can deal with that. Because their machine has to continue moving your muscles to do what it's supposed to do, which is either break up scar tissue, ease back pain, or build muscle strength. Okay. So, and then, you'd leave and you're done. So it's similar for training with the dogs. We start low and we work our way up. I don't know what Wilbur's number is going to be. And his obedience number may be different from his behavior number.
Yeah.
Okay. So obedience wise, as a reference point, he could be like, let's say at 25 and everything is perfect. He walks perfectly and all that stuff. But then when he sees a dog, you could be at 75.
Yeah.
Okay. Because now we're dealing with behavior and if he's being reactive and it's overriding the obedience, and you need to just teach them you don't do that, then you may need a firmer consequence. But it's still the same concept. Like you'd work your way up 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, and then maybe you land on 75 before he stops.
Okay.
So it's like, so for me, I was raised old school, I was spanked. So like, let's say I did something. So, let's say I did something and my parents spanked me, and let's say they spanked me 5 times. Okay. And then, a week later, I do the same thing. Okay. They're like, well, last time I spanked you 5 times. That didn't work. Now I'm going to spank you 10 times. Yeah. Right. And they would keep escalating that consequence until eventually I'm like, you know what? It's not worth it. Okay. It's the same thing for the dog. When I come into a reactivity case like this, the first thing I do with reactivity is just teach them how to walk correctly. Okay. Did you happen to watch any of our videos, our training videos and stuff?
I watched one consultation video outside, but nothing.
Okay. So I know what our issues are, right? We have separation anxiety we want to work on, and we have the dog reactivity. Okay. Bar collar will handle separation anxiety, but what can happen is when I teach Wilbur to walk my style, which my style is if I take 1 step, he takes 1 step. Yeah. I take 5 steps, he takes 5 steps. When I stop, he automatically sits. And I don't care what's going on in the environment. I don't care if there's dogs, people, rollerbladers, skateboarders, whatever. I don't care if we're inside a PetSmart or out at a busy park. He's gonna give me that level of focus. Okay. Yeah. Is that fixes 70% of problems, 80% of problems right off the bat. Okay. Yep. So most people think when I come in, it's, oh, your dog is reactive. Well, let's go find dogs and let him be bad, and then we'll punish him. Okay. And I'm not saying that's not an approach. It's an approach. It's just not the first approach. Okay. Yeah. So first I would get him structure through that. And it's not so much, the leash walking, and just focusing and calming down is a part of it, but it's really all the discipline behind it, all the contractions, all the consequences that he's receiving that actually address the behavior issue. Okay. Because, for me growing up, if my mom said, don't do that, it was just don't do that until she spanked me for the first time. Now, don't do that had a totally different meaning because now there's threat of physical consequence. Yeah. Okay. It's the same thing for dogs. Okay. So if a dog, let's say Wilbur is like harassing a dog and the dog always growls but never bites Wilbur, Wilbur will always harass that dog. Yeah. Because you're just growling at me, right? But then one day the dog goes, I growled at you 100 times and you never learn. Boom. Right. And then Wilbur goes, crap. Now your growl means something. And now he's going to double think. Now he's going to think twice about like, do I really want to press this dog again? Yeah. Okay. Questions so far?
No questions. Just taking it all in.
Okay. So it is possible that the leash walking issue, discipline will also address the separation anxiety issue. Okay. Now, if that happens, then I would say you didn't have a dog with separation anxiety. Okay. Because when I get dogs with separation anxiety, it is a process, it is work. Okay. So I have another dog. And if you want to get more of an idea of how this would play out, if you go to my YouTube channel, I have playlists.
Okay.
And one of the playlists is titled, I believe it's Dog Training Highlights. And if you click on those, I have I think 6 videos right now, but I have a few cases. One of them in particular, the dog's name is Lake. That's a real good one to watch. Okay. Lake is a pit bull that came to me and had 2 other trainers. And for reactivity and aggression issues, and one trainer said your dog's aggressive, give your dog Prozac. And then the other trainer, it just wasn't working. Okay. So they had their first session here. The dog was very under stress. And I did the same thing that I'm telling you, where I said, I know what the problem is, but I want to see what just discipline fixes. Okay. And then class 2, and it's like a 10-15 minute video. In class 2, you see Lake as calm as can be out at a park. Okay. Okay. And then I told him, this is great. I'm like, this is how it's supposed to work. Okay. But then what I told him was, your case wasn't really an aggression case or a separation anxiety case, because it just happened real quick. Yeah. Right. It was just a dog with too much stress. And I get other cases with separation anxiety or aggression, and we're working on it, like I said, for a period of time. And then that's how I can tell the difference. Okay. Now with separation anxiety, we won't know until, of course, we get started, and then you're the feedback. Yeah. So let's say you start the training, you do a few days with the e-collar, and then you experiment with I'm just going to leave. I'm not going to put the bark collar on Wilbur and see what happens. And do you have a cam or something?
No, I don't.
You don't? Okay. You can get them fairly inexpensively now. I think they're as low as $25 to $50. And they even send you notifications there was a noise detected in your home. Okay. And if it's Wilbur, it'll hear, you can go back and it'll play howling or whatever. Okay. So, but that would be something, you could look into, and that would give you feedback on oh yeah, ever since we started the training, we've not had any separation anxiety. Or it might be, oh, Jesse, he's doing great with reactivity, but he still howls. Yeah. Then I go, no problem, slap the bark collar on him, and then, put it on this setting, and then we'll just let it do its work. If we end up needing the e-collar for extended periods of time, what I would suggest is you get a comfort adapter, and I can send you this information. Yeah. Because it's meant for extended wear. Okay. So with the e-collars, 2 probes, right? So if you put the bark collar on him and you leave it for 8 hours, what can happen is he develops pressure sores from 2 things poking in the neck for a long period of time. Yeah. Okay. So it's not the bark collar, it's the 2 things poking in his neck. So people that are bedridden or paralyzed and stuff, they get sores on their body because they don't move. Okay. So they have to rotate them and stuff to prevent it from happening, but it inevitably happens in a lot of cases. So the comfort adapter just helps kind of remove that worry of you can have it on him for an extended period of time, and he's not going to get pressure sores. Okay. And we use them here at the facility, when we get dogs that bark a lot and get separation anxiety or whatever, we put the comfort adapters on them because we know that they're going to be wearing them for a period of time. Now when it comes to progressing past the bark collar, okay, every dog is different. I've had cases where, yes, they don't need the bark collar. I get cases where they need the bark collar, and they need the bark collar just ongoing. It's not so much the training or the level of training or my skills and what I'm able to do, because I can get dogs to not be, to cut the separation anxiety real quick. But there's a lot of things that I don't do that you do. Yeah. Your dog isn't for me a companion animal. Yeah. He's just a dog that comes to my facility that I'm training or that I'm caring for, but I don't cuddle with them. I don't really pet them. I don't really give any kind of affection. They're just a dog that I'm caring for. I feed, I water them, I exercise them, I socialize them, I take them out the potty. and then I'm pretty much like how I am with you is like how I am with the dog right now. Like I'm just like, this is what it is, right? So there's no attachment to me. Okay. So then also if I give him discipline, so one, there's no attachment, but then two, he also gets discipline. So then we're not going to see separation anxiety. But for people, they get dogs for companionship. Okay. And that's where a lot of these issues come from. Okay. Now you had mentioned earlier, and I read in the consult, I guess the same family kept returning them.
Yeah, one family returned him twice, and I don't know how they gave him back to him, him back to them, and then another family got him and then returned him after he ran away.
Okay. Yeah, because people want easy dogs.
Yeah.
You know. So regardless of what happened in the past and everything, and that you rescued him and all that stuff, and maybe you feel like he's like a reject or something, is you can't feel bad for him. Okay. Because that's part of the problem.
Yeah.
Okay. Because what humans want to do is they want to compensate.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, like I feel so bad, he was abandoned and rejected and all that stuff, and I'm gonna give him the best home ever and everything, which I'm completely all for. But what's the best home ever for a dog and what people think it is usually very different. Now you're very much on the right track. Okay. But most people, like I actually had a consultation where someone put in like, I want to spoil this dog and make him the happiest dog in the world. And I'm like, did you not read our website? Because that's completely not what we're about, right? I'm all about making the dog happy, but not because we spoil them. Yeah. Okay. Because he's not thinking about being returned 3 times. He's not thinking about, he doesn't think he's a reject. He's not self-aware like humans are. Like a human can lose an arm and like it's psychologically, like you have to get over that, right? Dogs lose a leg and then like they recover and heal up and they're running around like they never lost a leg. Right. Okay. So, like right now, because I'm watching and he's over, like it's cute, right? He comes, he puts his face here and you're petting him and all that stuff. But what I'm seeing here is a dog that was stimulated, that wanted attention and was more so just putting himself in your personal space, and you were rewarding that. That can attribute to separation anxiety. Okay. So dogs have boundaries. Okay. So it's funny because humans with dogs typically don't have boundaries. Like they'll let a dog into their personal space, especially if it's their own dog. But then they get mad because like maybe their dog's sleeping on the couch or something, and they'll go to pet the dog and the dog will growl at them. Okay. And they're like, what the hell? Like I go to pet my dog and he growls at me, but I let him in my personal space all the time. I'm like, that's actually why. Yeah. Because the dog just goes, I do what I want with you. You don't do what you want with me. And I'm going to put rules on you. Okay. But the human doesn't reciprocate rules. So then it creates this imbalance. Okay. Now I'm not against petting Wilbur. I'm not against giving him affection, but it reinforces that attachment, right? Making him a needy dog. Yeah. Okay. Now for humans, a needy boyfriend or girlfriend does not carry a positive association. No. Right. So I don't see why people would want a needy dog. Does that make sense? Yeah. So when you start to make yourself indifferent to him and he starts to essentially kind of care about what you're doing less, then separation anxiety also, it's also a tribute to that. Right. Okay? Because it's not just punish the behavior, for like howling and stuff. Because if he's howling because he needs to be with you, but then when you're home, you're constantly petting and touching and interacting with him, you're creating a problem, then you're punishing him for a problem that you created. Yeah. And then that's where things get a little, in my opinion, unfair. And so it has to be a balance of like, the correct psychology of how we treat him, and then also just holding him accountable for things that we don't accept. But obviously, it's like giving a kid candy and treats or sweets and all that stuff, and then making fun of them because they're fat. But you keep giving them stuff that, makes them fat. You know what I'm saying? So, and this is all stuff, it's real easy to understand. It's just shifting, like I said, I pet dogs, but I pet them when they do something that I told them to do. you know, like as a reinforcer, like, hey, good job. I don't pet them because they're cute, and I don't pet them because they just come into my personal space. But that's what most people do, you know, and that's why I have a job. Okay. So in your particular case, in terms of like length of time and how I would approach this is if I'm assuming you obviously we care about the dog reactivity.
Yes.
We care about the separation anxiety and recall or come when called.
Yeah, he's pretty good at that already, even off leash.
Uh-huh.
But I would like to improve that a little bit, just in case.
Well, you want to think, so everything's great or good until something happens.
Exactly.
Right? So that's what we're training for. In order to address the reactivity, we need the healing exercise or leash walking. Is there anything else with Wilbur that you're either wanting or needing to do? Like, would you take him to a restaurant with you? Are you wanting to learn how to socialize him with other dogs?
Yeah, I do want to learn better socialization for him. And I have like dogs available in Chicago that are willing to hang out with him if that helps.
Cool. Mm-hmm.
But in terms of like restaurant and stuff, no. Just I live in like a very populated area. I live on Lakeshore Drive. There's dogs all throughout my apartment building. Like it just the first couple days that I had him, like it was so stressful, like going into a public space, and I would just like wait to be back in my apartment because that's when I knew I had like even more control.
Right.
Yeah.
So here, the goal is you can walk anywhere.
Yeah.
And not feel like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So I've had clients, you know, they live in like high rises in like the downtown area. And I had a lady that used to go down like 20 something flights of stairs 3 times a day at awkward times a day, like at 3 o'clock in the morning and stuff, to avoid dogs because her dog was so reactive and she couldn't go in the elevator. Okay. And then it's crazy, right? But that stuff happens because elevators are small.
Yeah.
So then, you know, she did the training and then she's able to have a normal life with her dog. Yeah. So we train for the real world. You know, that's why we train outside. And I'm right now, because fall just kind of came overnight, apparently. I got to figure out how we're going to adapt to this new season with everything that's going on with COVID and stuff. But we train, you know, my whole goal is when you're done with the program, you end with like, I have the confidence and tools and the knowledge that I can just take on whatever happens.
Yeah.
Okay? So the way I would see your program playing out, okay, is the first 2 classes would be leash walking. Okay. Which would be the healing exercise. The first class is the hardest class, and I would send you videos to watch to prepare you for it so that when you come in, we can just jump straight into the training. And then at the end of the session, you know, I'll tell you this is your homework. Depending on how he does, I may have you avoid reactivity the first week. So you learn how to use your e-collar. Okay. Then come class 2, I would ask you and say like, you know, how was your week? How did it go? And you might say, man, Jesse, reactivity is so much better. And then I'm like, awesome. And then you're like, you know, he only learns to bark at dogs that lunged and barked at him. And I go, great. I'm like, that's a big chunk of dogs that we've, you know, reactivity we've gotten done. And that is normal when it comes to reactivity towards reactivity because it's a spectrum. And that tends to be the longest it takes to address because it requires the other dog to be lunging and barking. Yeah. But then also, if that person leaves the scenario because they're embarrassed or whatever, and he's still being reactive before you can stop him, he thinks he made that happen. Yeah. Okay. So it's harder to work with, but like, you know, walking past dogs, calm dogs, puppies, and things like that, that's typically the first thing that goes away. Okay. So the second class, we review things. I go, awesome. You know, then I teach you the second half of heal because it's a 2-class thing. And then I'll give you your homework and I'll say, we're going to make a couple of adjustments and we'll see you in a week. Okay. You know, come back week 3. How's it going with reactivity? Jesse, what you said fixed the problem. You know, I'm like, awesome, great. We're going to just let that continue on like it is. Just fill me in if something happens. And now we're going to start working on like the recall. Okay. So recall is come when called. It usually takes people the longest to teach because it requires you to go somewhere and have them on a, at a distance to practice.
Yep.
Okay. So I always give the tools for the owner to get it to be off leash reliable, but most of the time it usually takes owners longer than the program to get there. Okay. Especially if they don't live, like some of my clients are, it's convenient. They live across from the park.
Yeah.
Right. So they get it done within a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Because they can practice every day. Most clients, they don't have that. Okay. So that's just a heads up there. The leash walking is always really fast because you walk your dog multiple times a day.
Yeah.
Okay. So recall is, again, another 2 classes because there's 2 halves to it. And then classes 5 and 6 would be, we can use it towards socialization, like where you have a friend join us. I also have started a dog socialization group on my Facebook business page.
Okay.
To put my clients in touch with each other. So that this way they can like coordinate with each other and socialize their dogs and they know the same things. Okay, so it builds for more consistency. So I'd invite you to that if you'd like to join that. Otherwise, you're welcome to have your friends. So realistically speaking, reactivity and socialization have nothing to do with each other. Okay. So I've had people whose dogs are extremely leash reactive, but then off the leash they're extremely dog friendly.
Yeah.
Okay. So I go, then we don't need to really worry about socialization. And I don't like, let's say you meet a random dog on the street. I don't suggest socializing with dogs you don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's because when dogs meet on the street, they typically meet face to face because people, you're walking towards each other typically, right? And so when the dogs are meeting face to face, this is very confrontational. So for humans, that's how we greet. We say, hi, how are you? We shake hands. Yeah. But dogs, they greet each other by going nose to butt. So it's like a yin yang, okay? But when they greet on the leash and you get this face to face, it's very confrontational, and then it usually sparks into something, okay? So realistically speaking, I tell people don't worry about that kind of greeting. But like if you have a friend that has a dog that would regularly come over, I would show you how to correctly socialize them to build trust. So then that's realistic because you would see that dog again.
Yes.
Okay. And then so think of like, socialization as like humans with friends. Like we don't just meet someone and then like become best friends and like give them the keys to our house and stuff, right? It's like I have guys that I've known for like more than half my life that I trust with like anything and everything. But I have guys that I've known for a couple of years that I trust, and I trust a lot, but I don't trust them to that degree, because that comes with time. So it's the same thing for dogs. When we greet and we interact with dogs, I look at it as building a friendship. And, if I'm working with a dog that has like legitimate aggression issues, they will open up, and the owner's like, wow, like my dog can't socialize. I'm like, yeah, because they've met that dog 20 times. Yeah. It's not best friends off the bat. Like some dogs are capable of that. Some people are capable of that as well. But, it's just like if you look at people, some people are very social. They can just like have a conversation with anybody. Some people are not, I was going to say antisocial, but like they open up, but they take time to open up.
Yeah.
And they only open up to like the people they know. So like maybe like 5-6 people or whatever.
Right.
So like me, I'm an introvert. Right now I may seem very sociable and stuff because it's part of my job, right? And when I'm with my friends, I'm very open to socialize. But other than that, like if I'm out, like I just mind my business, So it's the same thing for dogs. And you're just kind of helping Wilbur, along his life, make friends and stuff like that. But reactivity on leash and socialization off leash, because that's what people think. They're like, if my dog likes dogs off leash, then they should like dogs on leash. And they go, it doesn't work that way. Okay. So that would be class 5 and 6, most likely. The separation anxiety stuff, the reason why I haven't mentioned that here is because I will check in on it. Okay. And I'll say, how's that going? And you may say like, I tried just leaving him without the bar collar after doing a few days of the e-collar and he was still howling and stuff. Yeah. Now I haven't exercised that we can do to work on him accepting the crate. Okay. And it's a very simple exercise. So that can always be like, one of the classes. It's simple to cover, or even part of a class, because it's more so here's the information and you do it, because e-collar is super simple once you understand it. Okay. And then worst case scenario would be, Wilbur just happens to be a dog that needs the bark collar in order to be chill, which is nothing bad.
Yeah.
It's just what he needs. Okay. Question so far?
No questions.
So a very common question that I get is, when does the e-collar go away? In my book, when you need it, it doesn't.
Okay.
Okay. So that means when you're out on the walk with Wilbur, he's going to have the collar on.
Yep.
Okay. So this has nothing to do with my skills as a trainer. This has nothing to do with, the technology or like the training tool, because you'll read stuff online and it'll give the impression of you will advance past these tools.
Yeah.
Okay. That's more so, I don't know, how would you say, like, for me, it's they don't understand reality.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
They're kind of stuck in their own world. And so I guess an example of that would be veterinarians prescribe Prozac, fluoxetine, and triazidone to dogs for aggression issues all the time. All the time. It doesn't work. Because I get a lot of dogs that are on those drugs and they're still biting people and they're still attacking dogs. Okay. But they still prescribe them. Okay. And then the owner still gives it. And I go, why are you still giving why is the dog on trazodone? Because the dog's aggressive. Okay. Did it help? No. Then why is the dog on trazodone? Well, I'm afraid. I'm like, well, it didn't help in the first place. You know what I mean? So they can't, they either, don't want to accept it or they're afraid to, something like that. So I'm very just common sense, and, going through 10 years of it, when I learn from the information my clients give me. Okay. And the easiest way to put this is, do you drive?
Yeah.
Okay, you can drive, or you've driven.
Yeah.
Okay. If you've been on the expressway.
Yes.
Do you go the speed limit?
I probably go a little over the speed limit.
Okay. On the expressway, you've probably seen other people don't go the speed limit either.
Yeah, sorry.
Right. Most people don't, right?
Yeah.
I don't either. Okay. That's opportunistic behavior. Okay. We do it because we can get away with it.
Yeah.
Right. And we rationalize, I'm just going 5 over 70, right? It's just 5 miles, right? But there's no section in the law that says it's okay if you're just 5 miles over.
Yeah.
It's just, this is the speed limit. You go the speed limit. So if a cop is there and they see you, they'll stop you, right? You get a potential ticket. Now, let's say we're all driving on the expressway and we see a squad car. What happens?
We slow down.
Yeah, because now there's threat of consequence. Okay, so that's dogs. So look at the e-collar as a cop on a collar.
Okay.
When he's got it on, he's gonna be better behaved. And when it's not on, he's not so well behaved, right? And the most common thing is really just outside. For you, 2 things, it's outside and when you're gone.
Yeah.
Right? Now, inside is easier because you spend most of your time inside. Mm-hmm. And there's less stimuli. You're not dealing with a bunch of dogs that you've never seen before and all these things that are going on.
Yeah.
So that's what you're having to contend with. Mm-hmm. Okay, you're having to make yourself more important and what you say more important than what's going on within the environment. But the only way you can do that is if there's a reinforcer. Okay, and negative reinforcers are always, in my opinion, the best reinforcers. Okay, nobody likes consequence, right? Have you ever touched a hot stove?
Yeah.
Would you do it again?
No.
There you go. Right? So that's dogs. Okay. So that's just animal behavior. Have I had dogs progress past the e-collar? I have. Very rare. Okay. And it's like, 2 to 3 years later, like, yeah, so it's time. But then my thing is, like, my client will tell me, like, oh, like, Jesse, we don't even use the e-collar anymore. It's great. And I'm like, but what happens if someone sets off a firework and scares your dog?
Yeah.
Like, that's something that's out there, right? Yeah. So uh, otherwise, if he's doing well within the home, the worst, what this would look like is when you walk him, he's got the collar on, he behaves better. You're not needing to use it because he's like, okay, the cop is here, I have to behave myself. Maybe once in a while you have to reinforce it. And then when you leave and he's in the kennel, possibly he's wearing the bar collar. That's, again, kind of remains to be seen.
Yeah.
That one you'd be more likely to move past from, because again, it's within the home and it's only been 3 weeks. So, typically it takes dogs 2 weeks to a month to settle. So there's also that variable. But once he gets used to the structure, it could be a year from now, it could be in a few months, a couple of weeks, I'm not sure, where he gets disciplined and then just gets used to the fact of like, oh, mom goes 9 to 5 Monday to Friday and returns. Okay, nothing to worry about. So in my book, puppies and dogs are created the first year of their life after you get them. So if you get a 2-month-old puppy, then at a year and 2 months is when I start to experiment with them being loose in the home. If I adopt a dog at 2 years, then at 3 years, they get space within the home. Okay. Because it gets them used to the structure and all that stuff. But we'll see how that stuff plays out. Any questions?
No.
In regards to your e-collar, if you decide to exchange it, the one I would recommend for you is the Dogtra, Dogtra.
Okay.
2300 2300.
Okay.
NCP for Nick Constant Page.
Okay. And then I'm assuming that comes in different sizes and.
That is the size.
Oh.
Yeah. That's so there's different sizes for different temperaments and body sizes for dogs. Like there's a tiny one that's for like 10-pound dogs and under. There's one for 35-pound dogs and under. The one that I'm recommending for you is for 70-pound dogs and under. Okay. So it covers his weight class. So if possible, I'd suggest you return your educator and exchange it for the 2300. You would keep your bark collar because you said it's the same company, right?
Yeah.
It's like I think it's the bark limiter or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that one's fine. You would use that bark collar, but it's just the e-collar that I would suggest exchanging.
Okay.
And then Maria will get in contact with you. She handles all scheduling and accounting stuff.
Perfect.
Your consultation fee does get credited towards the program.
Okay.
And then, so because of COVID, it's really changed a lot of stuff. Because I used to do home to home where I would travel to all my clients.
Yeah.
And work with them in their environment. But since, I would see upwards of like 8 people a day.
Right.
So, and I'm going in their homes and stuff. So like, if I go to a home and they've contracted or been exposed to COVID and then expose me, and then I see 7 other people throughout the day, that's what I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to work around.
Yeah.
So what we've been doing is we work, are you familiar with Oz Park?
Yeah.
Yep. So Oz Park is the busiest park in Chicago. Like everything is going on there. Okay. Dogs, people, skateboarders, rollerbladers, all that stuff. Baseball games and stuff. So it's a very busy environment, which makes it realistic for the owner to practice in. So we've been having people meet us at Oz Park to train, and then they just transfer that to their home. Okay. We've begun recording all the training sessions. So like, let's say you forgot something or you didn't hear something, because it's all verbal instruction now. I don't touch Wilbur. Okay. Unless you need me to help him, like help you with like an exercise that needs 2 people. I don't touch him. It's all you. Okay. So I'm there with you and I'm watching you and I'm coaching you and I'm telling you what to do and I'm educating you, but you're doing everything yourself. Okay. So you learn everything from ground zero. I prefer this because I already know how to train dogs. I don't need to, train him for you. You need to learn that stuff. And that's what prepares you for life is, dog training goes beyond sit, stay down, come heel, because that's when everything's perfect and nothing's happening. But what happens when you turn the corner and there's a dog and that dog starts lunging and barking and then Wilbur starts lunging and barking. Right now it's like, how do I handle the situation? Or it's, I had my dog off leash and somebody blew up a firework and scared my dog. Now my dog's running away. How do I make my dog return? Okay. I train for realistic scenarios. You know, I had a client's dog. They were at the park, and somebody threw a tennis ball, and her dog and another dog went after a tennis ball at the same time and got in a fight. Okay. And she was able to get her dog out of the fight immediately because of e-collar.
Yeah.
Okay. So I hope that stuff doesn't happen, but you know, being realistic is that it can.
Yeah.
So we would meet at Oz. We are opening up to in-home where I would travel to my clients.
Okay.
It's going to be at a higher rate, which I'm working on, because I'm limited to what I can do. I can only see so many people, right? But when I work at Oz Park, you know, we can see as many people in a day. One, we can social distance, and it's all verbal instruction, so I'm not having to touch the dog. It's in a realistic environment. And then if you do need help, like we bring hand sanitizer and all that stuff along with us. But that kind of having people come to me allows me to see more people because I don't have to travel everywhere.
Sounds
right?
good. Yeah.
So you'll have a couple of options, and Maria will fill you in on all that stuff.
Okay.
Other than that, do you have any questions or concerns?
Just in your initial thoughts, you were talking a little bit about how he's invited himself into my space and I allow it and I reward it. What do you just suggest initially before I sign up for all the classes and stuff? How do you suggest I take care of that?
Just push them away.
Okay.
You know, so like don't say no, go away or anything like that. But like, so if my pit came into my space, are you familiar with Caesar Milan?
Yeah.
The dog whisperer? Okay.
Yeah.
So if you watch him, especially his old stuff, he would make his hand into a claw, right? To like bite the dog. And what I do is if my pit came here, instead of going like this, okay, that's what people do. They do this. They push. Is the dog will push in.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you create this kind of like back and forth.
Yeah.
What I do is I go like this and I make contact with the dog, you know, on their chest or whatever. And I slowly start to push him away. And you even might see him kind of like go at your hand a little bit because it's uncomfortable, right? But it's not him being aggressive. It's because you're essentially using his psychology back to like go like, hey, back away.
Yeah.
So like if a dog went into my pit bull space and she's like, I don't like this, she'd bite him and the dog would move away, right? But you're not going to bite your dog. So instead to replicate, I just do that and I push and like you'll feel him kind of go against it and eventually you feel him like relax and then just walk away. Okay. Or like sometimes if you're sitting down, the dog will come between your legs. And when they do that, I just squeeze my legs together with the dog in between. And that pressure makes them uncomfortable that they'll scoot back and walk away. Okay. And then, you know, 45 minutes later, you could be like, Wilbur, come over here. And then you pet him. Right. And then when you're done, you ignore him. And then if he comes back looking for more, you just push him away. Okay. So you're just putting, you know, limits to things. So it's like, it's kind of like in a relationship between two people, being in a relationship with another person doesn't just give you or them the right to just come and like put their hands on you or like kiss you however they want whenever they want. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like there's still some kind of rules and boundaries in play there, right? Because there has to be consent. So it's the same thing for the dog. Okay. You know. And when it comes to boundaries, dogs have boundaries as well. Like earlier, I mentioned that, you know, I've had clients who like my dog's in my personal space all the time, but when I go to touch them, they growl at me. I'm like, yeah, because your dog is essentially saying, I do what I want with you, and I'm putting the rules on you because you don't put rules on me, and I don't want you to touch me all the time. Okay. You know, so, and we'll talk more about like just the social stuff as well, but that's like a super simple thing. Don't make a big deal when you come home. Don't make a big deal when you let him out of the kennel. You know, don't try to coo at him or anything like that. Yeah. I like that you're doing the food stuff. You can keep doing what you've been doing. That's all fine. That's just training stuff. Okay. But you know, if you leave like, okay, buddy, I'm leaving, and then you come back like, hey, buddy, I'm back. Yeah. You know, now you're creating energy. Yeah. And I want Wilbur to associate calmness to the crate always. Okay. Okay. I'd also suggest if you haven't been doing this already is feeding him in the crate.
Yeah. Feeding him like his meals. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. So like put the food in there, right? So like the way I do it is I put the food in for 5 minutes. Okay. And I close the gate and I leave. And Wilbur might be throwing a fit. and then you'll come back 5 minutes later, and all of a sudden he starts eating his food because you're back, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
take the food.
When I'm not like around.
Good. So yeah, just start feeding him in the kennel. Give him 5 minutes, and if he doesn't eat it, just put it away and keep repeating, you know? But eventually it's just to help associate, like, you know, it's the positive aspect of, I only get fed in the kennel. I only get certain things in the kennel. As well as the other aspect of like, it's not just liking the kennel, it's liking the kennel and being able to be within the kennel for a period of time. And
Okay.
that's where like the bar collar and stuff comes into play.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, so then if you have any questions, you just let us know. Otherwise, I suggest, you know, if you want to learn more about us, just check out our training videos.
Okay.
They're uncut, they're unedited. The highlight videos are more so to show and educate people on how behavior works. And then the other ones are there kind of just to like show people, like, they'll watch from beginning to end, like, holy crap, the dog was crazy, and then at the end of the session, your dog was good. I'm like, yeah, but that's why that's why we do it, because it shows that what we do is effective.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So we'll be in touch. If you need anything else, you let us know, okay?
Okay, thank you so much.
You take care now. Bye-bye.